are in listen-only mode.
Hey guys, it's Jeff. Mike's actually out on spring break, so I'm going to be doing the call today. And let me on the thing, you guys probably hear my phone ringing. Let me mute that. Hope you guys had a great Easter. Hope you had a great weekend. And you know, even though Mike's gone, the rest of us are still here in the office. So anything you need, we're here to help. Today, what I thought I would talk about is primarily, how do you sell annuities in an environment like we're in? And when Mike was gone a couple weeks ago, I had started a conversation that I just kind of want to review as we kind of roll into what we're going to talk about today. Again, how do you compete when caps are low and when the markets are doing really well? So, you know, when we talked, we asked the question last time, a couple weeks ago when I did the call, who do we want to duplicate as clients? So hopefully you guys can see my whiteboard. And we said, you know, really, that's an easy question to answer. The people we want with clients are people with money. We're looking with people with no debt, because if they have a lot of debt, anything they have or anything they make is really going to, you know, service that debt. We're also looking for people with good incomes. Again, we don't want them spending every penny that they have on their income need. Otherwise, they'll be out of money soon, and anytime somebody's out of money, they're not just going to look in the mirror and blame themselves. Inevitably, they end up blaming you one way or another. They say either that you didn't grow my money fast enough and that's why we ran out of money, or you took too much risk to grow my money too fast and that's why we ran out of money, but it always comes back to haunt you. So the perfect client is somebody with a lot of assets, they don't have a lot of debt, and they have great incomes. And because they have assets and they don't have debt and they have good incomes, they probably have a great lifestyle. And so last time we talked, we said, you know, it's really difficult to get people like that to make changes. I mean, it's hard to get people like that to make changes for all the things that we just talked about, all the reasons that we talked about. They feel like they're doing something right. They don't have a lot of debt. They have good incomes. They have good assets. They have a great lifestyle. Why would they want to make any changes? I mean, at this point, if they were to change anything, their greatest risk would be making a mistake. So it's really, really hard to move people like that, especially in this environment. I mean, when the markets are doing poorly, a lot of times people will look around and think, well, what could I be doing different? But when the markets are going great, you think it's easier or harder to move people, especially people like we're talking about, the kinds of people that we want to duplicate. It's a lot harder, and again, for all the reasons that we talked about. So the best, and maybe quite frankly the only way to have success in an environment where everything seems to be doing well, is to do an advisorectomy, and that's what we talked about last time. So what is an advisorectomy? Well, it's a process where you get the other advisor out of the picture. And last time we talked about how we use that disclosure meeting, that second meeting after the agreement meeting in the software, to have these guided conversations where people tell you, I may or may not do anything with my investments, but one thing I am going to change is my advisor. And again, that's the only real way to have success in these kinds of markets and in this kind of an environment, because one, you avoid competing on performance. And if you had to compete on performance in a market like we see today, how well do you think you would do? Not very well. So we're not going to win on performance for a couple of reasons. Number one, the markets are doing great. Number two, can you really prove that your investment is going to do better than any other investment out there over the next year in the future? I mean, unless you have a crystal ball, they just have to take your word for it. And is anybody with a lot of money and no debt and a great income and a great lifestyle just going to take your word for it? Probably not. So we really don't want to compete on performance if we can help it, especially when the markets are performing really, really well. Instead, we want to change the conversation to where we're talking and competing on disclosure. Is he telling you everything? And that's black and white. That's not subjective. They don't have to take your word for it. They're going to tell you, yes, we've seen these things before, or no, we have not. And yes, these things do make a difference. It's black and white. No, we haven't seen them. That's black and white. We haven't seen it. First time we're looking at it. Yes, it makes a difference. That's black and white. Yes, I wish you would have told us. That's black and white. Why do you suppose he didn't tell you? Well, they're only going to come to one of three conclusions. Number one, either he didn't know, he didn't care, that might be another reason, or he didn't want you to know, he did it on purpose. But I'll tell you, regardless of which of these three they come to, over the course of a meeting where you're going through 20, 21 things, some of them are going to be he didn't know. Some of them are going to be he didn't care. Some of them are going to be he didn't want you to know. But even worst case scenario, the least egregious of these is didn't know. But if they say that 20, 21 times, there are 20, 21 important things that he doesn't know about, eventually they're going to start to think, we're not working with the right guy. And they'll start saying things in their mind like, I don't know if we have the right investments, but I do know one thing, we don't have the right guy. Why? Because he's not telling us things, either because he doesn't know, either because he doesn't care, or maybe he didn't want us to know because he benefits by the way things are set up. It helps him that they're set up that way. And we used titling last time as an example, but again, there are 20, 21, there's a 21-point checklist that you can go through. Not all 21 things apply to every client. Typically, what you're going to find when you enter the information into the software is you're going to have 16 or 17 things that would be more typical for you to talk about. And we said you don't even have to go 16 for 16. You can go 8 for 16. If you just bat 500 and they tell you there are 8 things he didn't know, he didn't care about, and didn't want me to know, guess what they end up saying? We're not working with the right guy. So whether or not they change investments, they will change advisors. And if they change advisors, they'll move investments. Even in the worst case scenario where they wouldn't move them right away, eventually down the road, if you're their investments and they move everything over in kind to you, they will end up changing their investments on your advice. So we have a headwind when the markets are looking really good, but you have a solution for that headwind. The solution for that headwind is the disclosure meeting. You avoid competing on performance, and instead you compete on disclosure, something that you can clearly win on. So that's what we talked about last time. Today I want to talk about another headwind that a lot of safe money advisors face today, and that is that caps are low. So we have to compete on disclosure just to get them to change advisors. But once they change advisors, the other headwind that we have is that all guaranteed things, including indexed annuities and fixed annuities, are paying low rates because that's the environment that we're in. Caps are low, so that's an additional headwind that we have to overcome. And yet, fixed and indexed annuity sales have broken records the past 2 years. So what gives? Well, what I thought I'd do today is show you a whiteboard presentation that gets people to move money to annuities, even when the markets are doing well, and even when caps are low. So let me kind of clear this screen and we'll talk a little bit about that presentation, and I'll show you that presentation. But again, the thing that I want to stress before we get too far into the presentation is the presentation is great. And we have a lot of presentations like this for all different kinds of investments, so no matter what you do, we probably have something like this. But these things that I'm showing you, this presentation that I'm about to show you, it won't work all by itself. It's not going to work if you just pull somebody into a meeting and say, I want to show you this great idea. Take a look at it. What do you think? So why? Why wouldn't it work by itself if it's so great? Well, again, because we talked about, they're already working. People with money, people that have no debt, people that have good incomes and a good lifestyle, they come in one of two flavors. They either have an advisor already, or they're do-it-yourselfers. They like doing it themselves. So I'm not going to talk about do-it-yourselfers today because we've talked about them in the past and we'll talk about them some more in the future, but they're a little bit different animal. But the people with advisors, they know they don't want to do it themselves. They're used to getting advice, so they want an advisor. If you do the disclosure meeting the way we talked about last time and the way we talk about using the software, they're still going to want advice. They're not going to want to do it on their own, but they're not going to do it with the guy that they're with. So because you're the one giving them advice, they're going to do it with you. But if you just tried to compete on performance, again, we're reiterating some of the things we talked about last time, but if we just competed on performance, imagine that they like their guy and they like you. And when they look at your investments, they say, gee, we like our investments. They're doing really well. But we also like what you're showing us as well. So if they like their investments and they like yours, what will they do? Who will they do it with? Well, the answer is they'll do it with their current advisor. Well, why would they do? I know why they'll keep the investments that they're going to keep with him that they like. But if they like your idea also and they want to put some money into your idea also, why wouldn't they do that with you? Well, because we talked last time, is it a hassle to change investments? Yeah, it's a hassle to move money. There's a lot of paperwork. For a time, their money's in limbo. It's something unfamiliar. They're not sure about it. They're a little bit uncomfortable. And if they're going to do it, they'd rather do it where they're most comfortable, with the least amount of hassle. And is that with you or with the guy that they're with? The guy that they're with. Also, they don't like confrontation. And would it be a confrontation to go back to their guy and say, you know what, we found this other thing that we like. We just want to put some money into it, so we just need $150,000 out of our current investments to do this other thing. Is that a little bit of a confrontation? Is that a little bit uncomfortable to tell somebody that, hey, we really like you, but we want to move some money away from you to another guy? It's a little bit confrontational. And he's either going to get in the picture and say, well, what's this other thing? I can do it too. Or, oh, that other thing, let me show you why you don't want to do that. He'll get involved and swirl the deal. Or he'll say, you know, again, we can do that here too. And because of the hassle, they can avoid that and avoid the confrontation. They'll just do it with him. So even if they liked your investment, they're still not going to do it with you. Even if they don't like their investments and they want to put all their money into your investment because they like it, they'll still do it with him to avoid the hassle and the confrontation. The only reason they wouldn't do it with him is if they decide they can't do it with him because he doesn't disclose or he doesn't give them all the information they need to make good decisions. So it's not enough to have these great product ideas and these killer whiteboard presentations. You have to do the work on the front end to get them to leave that current advisor. Because if they leave that current advisor, have made the decision in their mind to leave him, then they'll move their investments in kind to you. But if you show them a great alternative, they will move money to your great alternative. And they'll do it with you because the other guy at that point is out of the picture. But again, this presentation that I'm going to show you right now won't mean anything if you don't do the work leading up to this. So let me show it to you, and then I'll make a few comments, and then I'll take some questions if anybody has any questions. So this is what I would do on a yellow pad in front of a client, and it really starts at the disclosure meeting when we talk about investment weighting. So let me write investment weighting up here. We're going to have a guided conversation on the topic of investment weighting. And they're going to tell me that when it comes to investing, they really need to be concerned about two things, regardless of where they are in their life or regardless of what the markets are doing. Anytime we're dealing with money, we have to be worried about two things. And the first thing they're going to tell me that they need to worry about is inflation. Now, this conversation on investment weighting, it's on the website, so you don't need to worry about. I'm just kind of giving you an overview of it. But you can find the entire conversation in script form and in audio on the 5Q website. They're going to tell me that when it comes to investing, they really need to be concerned about inflation, because otherwise the spending power of their money will erode over time, and then they run the risk of not having enough, of outliving their income. And they're going to tell me that over time, the best place to grow your money to stay ahead of inflation is the market. So then we're going to talk, if that's the best place to stay ahead of inflation over time, why don't we just put 100% of our money in the market? And they always say, well, because it's too risky. And when we get into that, what that means it's too risky, they'll say, well, it can fall and we can lose money and we might not recover. So inflation's not the only thing we have to worry about. The other thing we have to worry about are losses. And in the conversation, we'll let them know that economists call losses volatility. Now, there are ways to avoid losses. We can put all our money in safe things like the bank, but why don't we do that? And they'll say because they don't pay enough. The interest rates are too low. You can only make 1 or 2% in the bank at most. Less these days. So we can't put all of our money in the market because that's too risky. And yet we can't put all of our money in something safe because now we can't make enough or earn enough to stay ahead of inflation. So we need to have money where? Both places, they tell me. So when people put money both places, we have aggressive investors, we have conservative investors, and we have people in the middle, moderate investors. We go through the example of a bell curve, and we use the bell curve to describe running a race. 10% of the people are going to run really fast up here on the bell curve. 10% of the people are going to run really slow back here in the bell curve. The rest are going to finish in this herd somewhere where? In the middle. So the really, really fast investors, those are the people that take their money to the Indian casinos and just put it down on the blackjack tables. That's their idea of growing their money, just taking their paychecks, going down there, gambling it, and hopefully doubling or even tripling it overnight. The really conservative investors or the really slow investors, their idea of investing is to just take their money, stuff it in a mattress, and bury that mattress in the backyard. So where do you kind of see yourself? And they always tell you, oh no, we're somewhere in the middle. Well, then we're going to have a conversation about what does the middle mean? What does moderate mean? And we'll go through the fact that economists have a definition of moderate, and their definition of aggressive is 120 minus your age. That's aggressive. 110 minus your age, that's moderate, and 100 minus your age, that's conservative. Now we come up with some numbers based on their age, but then I tell them that's their definition of moderate. At the end of the day, it's not their money, it's yours. So what's a good number for you? I mean, are you more in the middle but towards the kind of fast category, or are you more towards the slow category, or are you somewhere squarely in the middle? I mean, what's a good number for you? And they're going to tell you what's a good number for them. So they might have 90% of their money in the market, but they'll tell you, well, we still like to take a little bit more risk, but we should probably have 30-35% of our money in the market. So I'll ask them, if I came back with a plan that had 65% of your money in the market and 35% safe, would that be the kind of thing that you'd be looking for? And they'll tell you, sure. So they've already said that we don't want all of our money in the market. We do want some of our money guaranteed, and we do want some of our money safe. We have to have a lot of our money in the market to stay ahead of inflation, but we don't want it all there because it's too risky. And when we say we don't want it all, what we're thinking is that we want about 35% of it off the table, or 40%, or whatever they tell you. They're going to give you a number that they decide on and agree on that they're comfortable with. And this whiteboard presentation really starts with that in mind, that we've already got this agreement that we want some of our money off the table and we want it safe. So here's the whiteboard presentation. If they're coming to me, you know, we work with people that are dual licensed and we work with people that are insurance only licensed. So if you're dual licensed, if you do kind of a mix of securities and annuities, what I would do is I would show them the thing that they're most familiar with first. So if I'm going to show them any securities or any managed money, I'll do that first because they're familiar with it. And then I'll show them this alternative for the safe money second. If it's just a one-off sale or it's a current client and you're not going to show any securities, what I'll let them know is that, you know, for any money that we want guaranteed, this might make a good alternative. Or if you've just got that, if you've got a lot of money in cash, or if you've just got a brokerage account sitting somewhere not really doing anything, maybe this is an alternative for that money. So you can show this as part of a securities presentation or as just a completely straight one product annuity sale. Okay? So what I'll ask them is, or I'll actually tell them a story and then I'll start asking them some questions. So I'll start with the story. You know, John and Mary, when a client comes to me, a lot of times what they'll ask me is they'll say, you know, Jeff, what we want you to do is invest our money and grow it. And then when we decide that we want the income later on, just send us the interest, not the principal. So why do you suppose they tell me to just send the interest and not send any of the principal? Well, because they'll tell me they don't want to run out of money. Right. And if I started sending them principal, eventually the principal will start going down. And when the principal is gone, what do we know about the interest? Well, that it'll be gone too, right? So again, they're looking for money that they can't outlive. So if somebody was looking for money or an income that they couldn't outlive, does sending them the interest and not touching the principal, does that sound like a strategy that would make some sense? And they say, yeah, that would make a lot of sense, right? And so, you know, there have been some major changes in investments lately, because today if somebody came to me and they said, you know what, Jeff, we just really don't want to take a lot of risk with this pile of money. If I was to put them in something that didn't have any risk, what kind of a rate of return could I get them? I mean, if I was to put it in a CD or in a savings account at the bank, what kind of rate of return could they get? They'll say, whoa, gee, not a very good one. I mean, today, 0.5% in a savings account, maybe 1-2% in a CD. Right. And if that's what we did, would we keep up with inflation? Oh, no, I don't think so. Right. And there's another problem. That's the first problem, is we can't get any good growth rates in anything guaranteed these days. And the other problem is if, again, they're telling me just send me the interest, don't touch our principal. What kind of interest can I get in a guaranteed product these days? Like a CD or maybe even a bond. Again, 2-3%. Right. And is that a good interest rate? No, I don't think so. Right. So, I mean, this is a well-documented problem. This is a problem that we've had for several years now. And so just want to let you know that there are some new ideas that have come out in the last few years to kind of address this problem in particular. So what I want to do is I want to show you a concept. And then I want you to tell me whether or not you like the concept. If you like the concept, we'll get into a little bit more detail. If you decide you don't like the concept, then we'll look at something else. But here's the concept. So guys, breaking role play for a second. I'm going to draw a T. And the concept is this. These investments that I'm about to show you are offered by insurance companies. Because insurance companies, what we found over the last several years, particularly for people that are looking for guarantees, are really some of the strongest companies that are out there. In fact, in a lot of ways, they're stronger than banks. And while a lot of people, insurance companies typically offer life insurance, and while a lot of people these days aren't really that interested in insuring their lives, I mean, you guys, are you interested in buying life insurance? No, we're not. And I would tell you that you're not unusual in that way, that most people aren't interested in selling life insurance these days. But guess what people are interested in insuring? Their investments, right? Their investments, and more importantly, their income. So let me show you how these work. We're going to have something over here called the account value. And over here, they're going to have something called the income value. So let's just say that you were going to start with $100,000. Something easy for math. And we're in a really competitive environment for investments these days. I mean, there are a lot of people or a lot of investment companies that would like you to use them or move your money to them. And they'll say, yeah, there are. Right. So because it's so competitive, a lot of times what they'll do is offer a bonus. And so let's just say the bonus is 5%. So how much would you start with? And they'll say $105,000. Right, which is nice. And again, because this is a guaranteed product, they're going to pay you kind of a safe guaranteed rate. So what are some guaranteed rates that are out there these days? Gee, 2, maybe 3%, right? So you'll make 2%, 3%, maybe even 4% with this product. Now, breaking role plays for a second. Guys, why would I say 4%? Because that's what caps are these days. So I'll tell them, it's a guaranteed product, so you'll make a guaranteed rate or a guaranteed type rate, and so they're only going to pay you maybe 2, 3, up to maybe 4%. Okay? And they're going to pay that, and over the course of, say, 10 years, that account's going to grow to a final total of money. And at the end of that 10 years, you can take whatever that account has grown to, and if you wanted to, you could take it all out and go and buy a boat or whatever you wanted to do with it. And if you needed money anytime in between those 10 years, there'd be 10%. You could take 10% of it out with no cost. But I need to tell you that if you took more than 10% of it out anytime during that 10 years, there'd be a penalty. So, I mean, is this money that if you thought, gee, this is the kind of money that we want to use maybe in 2 or 3 years to take a trip around the world, is that money that you should put into something like this? No. Or if you were going to buy a boat in 4 or 5 years, do you think I would tell you that you should put that money in this investment? No. Right. So this really isn't for money that you might need in the next couple, 3 years. It's really for long-term money. And the other thing you need to know about this, well, let me just ask you this. What do you think of it so far? And they'll say, well, I mean, it's okay. Right. And the other thing you need to know about this is there is a fee. And that fee, depending on the company or the product, can be anywhere between 30 basis points and 90 basis points. So I'm not sure if you've heard that term basis point before, but just to kind of put that in perspective, 30 basis points on $100,000 is $300. And 90 basis points on $100,000 would be $900. So again, depending on the company and the product, they would charge you between $300 and $900 to do this. Now, when we talked about fees, we said that you should never pay a fee unless you understand what the fee is and what you get for it. Because when we looked at some of your other investments, what was the problem with the fees? Well, we didn't even know what they were, right? You didn't know that you were paying them, And were you really getting anything for it? No. So again, the fact that I'm showing you something with the fee, do you think that you get something for it? Well, we would hope so, yeah, and you do. And if all we looked at was this side of the diagram, you know what I'd have to tell you? I'd tell you that I'm not that excited about it. I mean, you're going to grow your money 2, 3, 4%. You can take it out lump sum at the end of 10 years, but during that 10 years, they're going to charge you this $300 to $900 fee per year. I tell you that I'm not that excited about it. But the reason I'm excited about it and the reason you're paying that fee is because of this other side of the diagram, or the income value. So again, we start with $100,000, and you get that 5% bonus over here as well. So you start with how much? $105,000, right? And on this side, they're going to guarantee you a growth rate as well. And the growth rate on this side is 6% per year. Might even be 6.5%. 6.5% are kind of the guaranteed rates that are out there for these days. So they're going to grow your money 6% guaranteed per year. Now, what do you think of that growth rate? And guys, what do you think they'd say? They'd say, wow, that's a great growth rate. That's an amazing growth rate, right? And do you know of anything else that you could grow your money guaranteed 6% per year? No, we don't know anything else like that, right? And that money's going to grow for as long as you leave it. You know, you can turn on the income anytime you want. So you could turn it on after year 3, year 4, year 8, year 9, but as long as you're not taking the income, it's going to grow at that 6% rate guaranteed, and they'll do that for up to 20 years. So right now you're how old, John and Mary? Oh, we're like 65, right? So you're in your mid-60s. And is there any time, do you think in the next 20 years between now and the time you turn 85 that you'll maybe want some of this money as income? Oh yeah, absolutely. There's the possibility that we would want some of this money as income, right? So again, you can turn that income on anytime you want. Year 2, 3, 8, 9. And this money's going to continue to grow at 6% guaranteed for as long as you leave it. Now at some point you're going to want to take income like we talked about, but you're going to want to let this sit and grow for at least a few years for a couple of reasons. Number one, you benefit two ways when you do that. You want to take advantage of that 6% growth rate as long as you can. And every year that you wait, it's growing, compounding at 6% guaranteed. And the other way that you benefit is every year that you wait, you're a little bit older. So when you go to turn on that income, again, you can turn it on anytime you want, they're going to pay you an interest rate of 4%, 5%, or 6%. It really depends on how old you are when you turn on that income. And so let's say at the time you turn on income, it's 5%. Remember when we talked about earlier, when people come to me, they want me to grow their money as much as I can. And is 6% a good interest rate for money that doesn't have any risk, that's completely guaranteed? Oh yeah, that's a fabulous rate. And then when they want the income, they want me to send them what? They want you to send them the interest. Not the principal, but the interest. And again, why? Well, because they want to make sure that they don't run out of money, and if they spend that principal, eventually they'll run out of money, right? So they're going to send you 5% based off this number in the form of income. Now let me ask you this. 4, 5, 6%, are those good interest rates or good withdrawal rates? Yeah, those are really good rates. In fact, if you went to the bank, again, and invested in a CD or a really safe short-term government bond, what kind of interest rate would you get? 2 or 3%. Right. So far, how does this look? Well, I think it looks great, right? And they'll pay you that 5% in the form of income for how long? And they'll say, well, gee, I don't know. Well, they'll pay you that income for as long as both of you live, until both of you are completely gone. So can you outlive this income? No. And are these good rates? These are great rates. And do you know of anything that can grow your money at 6% guaranteed for the next 20 years if you choose to, and pay you a 4, 5, or 6% in the form of income when you decide to turn it on? No. We don't know anything that could do that. Right. Now here's the thing. Let's talk about this account value for a second. Because let's say you take the income for a couple of years, and then after a couple of years of taking the income, both of you died in a car accident. Your kids would still get whatever this account value had grown to minus whatever you took in income. Now it used to be that when you turned on the income, if you died, guess who kept the money? Well, the insurance company, right? And so I didn't particularly like these, but now your kids get the money, which is good for your kids if you don't live a long time. But let's talk about if you do live a long time. Let's say one of you lives to age 100. Again, the company is going to guarantee this income until both of you pass away. And if somebody lives to 100, regardless of the investment that you had, if you were pulling money out of an investment till you were age 100, how much money would be left in that account? 0. So again, no matter what you did, there'd be 0 left for the kids if you lived to 100. But that was going to be the case regardless of the investment. And at least here on this side you have the guarantee that the company will pay you no matter what for as long as you live. Now let's think about this as well. If you have this guaranteed income that you can't outlive because the company will guarantee it until both of you are gone, that will allow your other investments to do what? Grow, right? And that's money that you can leave for the kids. So it's good for the kids both ways. If you don't live a long time, they're still going to get this account value minus these withdrawals. And if you do live a long time, you'll have this guaranteed income that you can't outlive. And it'll allow your other investments to grow so that you can leave those for the kids. So that's, well, let me stop here and break role play for a second. That's more or less the whiteboard illustration. And they're telling me that they can't get this anywhere else and that it looks really good. That's a really good rate to grow. That's a really good rate to pay at for income. And there's nowhere else that they can get that right now. So what I would tell you is if you're doing income planning for a client, this is an absolute must to show them. But the reason that these products, even in these low cap environments, are doing so well is even if they don't need the income, a lot of times what I'll say to people is this, you know, with the markets, they're doing great right now. But they've done great in the past, and what have we known? Eventually what goes up must do what? Go down. And we've lived through some really, really crazy volatile times when the markets have gone haywire, right? And so do we know that that will ever happen again? No. Do we know that it won't? No. But I would tell you this. My clients that have the least amount of stress and the fewest sleepless nights when the markets do go haywire are those with a pension. Why do you suppose they are able to kind of ride out these ups and downs of the market with a lot less stress and a lot less worry than other people with pensions? Well, because they've got that guaranteed income, right? And so I don't know if this would make sense. I don't know that this would make sense for all of your portfolio, but do you think it would make sense for at least a part of your portfolio? Oh yeah, I mean, I think this makes sense for part of our portfolio for sure, right? Because the thing is, do we know what's going to happen in the future? I mean, could somebody get sick? Yeah. Could the water main break in front of your house? Yeah. Could you know, the kids need extra money, need to borrow money from time to time? Oh yeah, that could happen. And when you have that guaranteed income, especially even if you don't need it, isn't it nice to know that you have that just in case for all of those kind of ugly surprises that can come up? Yeah, it's really not nice. So it's a great option for what if money. Because again, no matter what happens, no matter whether you have those ugly surprises or the markets don't cooperate, you're still okay because you have what? Well, we still have that guaranteed income, right? And Social Security and pensions are great because they're guaranteed for life, and isn't it nice to know that this is another piece that will always be there and is guaranteed for as long as the two of you live, no matter what. And again, can you get this, and do you know of anything else that'll do this? No, we don't know of anything else that would do this. So at this point, what do you want to do? Now, if they tell me they like the concept and they want to see it in a little bit more detail, which is what they'll tell you, what do you think of this concept? Oh, we really like the concept. Then from here, what you would do is just show them an illustration from whatever company that you like, whatever company that you're comfortable with, showing them what the guaranteed rates are, what the withdrawal rates are at different ages, pointing out the guarantees, pointing out the fee. And again, I've seen them as low as 30 basis points on fixed annuity chassis, and I've seen them be about 90 basis points on indexed chassis. But anybody who wants any money safe will tell you this is the place we want our safe money. We want to be able to grow our money, and then when we want to be able to turn on the income, we want you to send us interest. And they tell me that's what this is. It's growing our money, and then whenever we want, you're sending us the interest, and it's guaranteed for as long as either one of us live. I don't know any questions about anything. Again, my comments on this are everybody that sees this ends up putting some money in an annuity. If they need income, they're doing it. If they don't need income, they're typically doing it because, again, they feel like this is good money for all of those what ifs. We don't know what's going to happen, but if anything does happen, it's nice to know that we have this guaranteed income in our back pocket that we can turn on anytime we need it. But this won't work by itself. Because if they haven't divorced their current advisor and they see this, what they'll say is, boy, that looks like something that we can't get anywhere else. We ought to see if our guy knows what this is and if we can get it from him. Because it would be less hassle and less confrontation. If we can't get it from him, guess what? We'll come back and get it from Jeff. But let's just run it by him first and see if we can do it with him, avoid the hassle and confrontation, because we definitely want some of our money here. If you do the disclosure meeting, then when you show them this, what they'll say is, well, we're getting rid of that guy anyway. Let's just do this with you. Questions?
I did have a couple that came in.
Okay.
One, somebody's asking where they can get the 21-point checklist that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the 21-point checklist, maybe, it's out on the website. It's out on the 5Q website. So let me see if I can go there for you. Hopefully. If you you might have the login page bookmarked, so when you see this come up, oh, okay. Our website has changed a little bit too, some of you may have noticed, but let me get in there. So the 21-point checklist. You go down to the software and you look at the disclosure meeting software. It's going to ask you for some inputs, but I'm just going to populate it with the sample data. Based on your inputs from the Morningstar reports, from the fact find, and from their tax return. If you do taxes, if you don't, that's not a problem. You'll just be inputting the other things. It's going to generate that checklist for you depending on what your inputs were. So you may end up with 21 things. I think this shows all 21. You may end up with something less than 21, but then it'll generate a report from you. This is just so you can kind of preview what's going to be in the report, but the report will actually be all the things that are it'll look like this. The titling section of the report will look like this. And it ends up being anywhere from 60 to 80 pages depending on how many of the things that they're talking about. So that's the titling. We talked about the titling last time. Here's the investment weighting. This is the page that we get to talking about their investment weighting and what aggressive, moderate, and conservative means. We have the conversation about that's economists. What is aggressive? What is moderate to you? What do you think is a good number for you? And they'll usually keep it within the numbers that come up. So if they're only 60 years old, this would be 60%. 120 minus 60. 110 would be 50. 100 would be 40. 100 minus 60 would be 40. But it'll generate a whole proposal. So the proposal, this is the checklist. Oops. This is the checklist, but when you actually generate the proposal, it'll be in kind of a, I don't want to say book form, but you know what I mean. It'll have a cover page, and then it'll have a table of contents, and then it'll have the contents, and it'll be 60, 70, 80 pages long, depending on how many of those 21 things actually end up being in there based on your inputs. So here's a question. Why would I want it? Sometimes people will look at it and be like, it's 60, 70, 80 pages. You don't actually go through all this with people, do you? And the answer is yes and no. I go through every topic. I don't go through it page by page. But I do have a guided discussion on the Survivor's Guide. I do have a guided discussion on the Power of Attorney. I do have a guided discussion on all of these topics where they tell me, never heard of that before. Yeah, I wish I'd known about it. I wish my guy had talked to me about it before. And I'm thinking he didn't talk to me about it because he either doesn't know about it, doesn't care about it, or didn't want me to know. Because it puts him in a better position if I don't know about these things. And that's what gets them to leave that guy. I want it to be 60, 70, 80 pages long. Why do I want it to be 60, 70, 80 pages long? Because it's a tangible reminder of why they need to leave. And I want it to be heavy. And I want that tangible reminder to be thick. And I want that tangible reminder to be substantive so that they're not feeling like, you know, I'm only leaving for no good reason. They're feeling like, wow, that's a lot of good reasons to leave. We're doing the right thing, no doubt about it. Other questions?
There was one more that came in. It says, when things are going well for the client, as the environment we are in, can you give us an idea of what to say or ask them to agree to the first meeting?
Well, they're going to come in for the first meeting because of your marketing. So they're either going to come in, there's only a few ways that they come in to see you for a very first meeting or for the agreement meeting. They either come because you sent them a postcard and something piqued their interest. They come because a friend told them that they should come and see you. They come because you did a workshop and they have questions about Social Security or about take your brain for a jog. That's the reason they come in to see you. Why do they go on to the disclosure meeting when things are going well? Because of the areas of opportunity and concern in that agreement meeting. In the agreement meeting, maybe I can get back up there. sorry. In the agreement meeting, we're going to go through and set the tone, and they're going to tell me that why everybody works with me, that I'm an expert. Then we're going to do some fact-finding. After the fact-finding, we're going to go through some areas of opportunity and concern. I'm going to let them know that, based on their answers to the questions, I think that they're doing a really good job with a lot of things, and here are the things that I think you're doing really, really well and that I want to congratulate you on. But there are also some areas of opportunity, things that maybe you're not doing now that you could be doing that would give you an opportunity, and some things that concern me a little and maybe may or may not concern you, but let me just kind of tell you what they are. So if you go to the agreement meeting, you'll find it all broken out, but I'm specifically talking about areas of opportunity and concern. So what they're going to do is they're going to tell me on that areas of opportunity and concern there are 8, 9, 10 different things, and so I know they came in wanting to know one thing. Let's say I did a Social Security workshop, and they come in because they want to know what they can do to increase their Social Security checks, and they have some questions about some of the things I talked about there. I know that's on their mind, but it's my job in the areas of opportunity and concern to take that one thing and make it into 6 or 7 things so that they tell me, yeah, I do have questions about Social Security that I'm hoping that you can help me with, but now that I hear what you're talking about in the areas of opportunity and concern, I also have questions about my power of attorney, and I also have questions about my medical power of attorney, and I also have questions about my property casualty insurance, and now I can see I have questions about maybe what these long-term care things are that you can get some protection without paying any premiums. And I'm also wondering about, my income plan. So I get them to say that, yeah, you can help me with Social Security, but you can also help me with these 4 or 5 other things. Areas of opportunity and concern is where I do that. And then I let them know, then absolutely, let's set an appointment to talk about all of these things and get you more information about all of these things. But before I set that appointment, I guess I just need to know, is this something that you can actually act on, or is this more of an academic exercise? Because you're already working with somebody right now. And that's where Mike has talked and mentored and coached a lot to get them to tell you, well, I mean, we like that guy, but we don't love him. We're not married to him. And if you can show us some things that he's not doing or some things that could be done better, well, we'd absolutely do those with you. I mean, we could leave him if we had to. We don't want to have to, and it'd have to be worth it. But yeah, I mean, if it was worth it and that's what we had to do, we would do it. And that's how I get them to go to that disclosure meeting. Once they're in the disclosure meeting, I get them to tell me, gee, this guy didn't tell us about the survivor's guide. I go through the 21-point checklist. And they tell me, we haven't heard of any of these 16 or 17 or 18 things. And yeah, I wish we had known about them. He probably didn't or neglected to tell us because he didn't know about it himself, or he didn't care about it, or he didn't want us to know because he's in a better position if we don't know. So we're probably not working with the right guy. I think we should be working with you instead. Well, let me show you what my ideas are, and then I would show them that. The investments. Here's what I would recommend for your growth money. Here's what I would recommend for your safe money. What do you think of these concepts? Gee, we really like them. At this point, what do you want to do? Well, we want to do this. Other questions?
Nope, that's it.
All right, well, with that, it's the end of the hour. Again, Mike's gone this week because of spring break, but we're here. If you guys need anything, feel free to give us a call. If you have questions about anything that you saw today, or questions about anything that's going on with a client, or questions about anything that you have about marketing, or seeing more people, or whatever it is, don't be shy. Give us a call. That's what we're here for, okay? Thanks, guys.